Welcome back, everyone. This is Chase, and joining me today is Abigail Stern, designer and owner of Matek. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you. First and foremost, I should say thanks for all you do for our program. It's been great to get to know you and connect and work with you and connect you with students in our program. And I know you've really used the archive that we've built here on campus. So I'm excited about the projects that we've worked on, the opportunities to collaborate, and I'm sure there's more to come. So figured that context would be helpful, but I'm
the biggest fan of the archives.
Oh, we'll get into the archives. I've got a few questions on design inspiration. We can get into some of that too, but we definitely need to build out our ski archives a little bit more. We're a little lacking there, but I think there's some opportunity to really build that out, and I'm sure you'll love to see that.
A lot of sassy vintage 80s ads that could be some nice flavor to the archives.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely build that out. We're just getting started with that too. So, but first and foremost, I wanted to learn a little bit more about how you got into this space. You've had a really interesting career, I feel like, already, and I feel like you're just getting going too, right? Like there's a few more chapters to what you're doing, but you've already done so much at the same time and had a lot of different experiences. And I wanted to dive into that a little bit because I think your story is really, really interesting and interesting for our students too. I know quite a few of our students follow you on Instagram, and they kind of look at what you're doing as like the model for what they eventually want to do, right? They want to create something of their own. They want to disrupt. They want to create products that really mean something. And you're doing that with your company Matek, but it all started somewhere, right? I guess what was your connection to the outdoors growing up? Did you have an initial connection, or was there a moment, or what was that for you?
I grew up in Connecticut, in New York, and in a huge family that was mostly boys. So like throwing all of us outside to run around or go water skiing, or winters like skiing on a snow mountain, or all the sports, soccer, lacrosse, tennis, like that was always sports kind of, I guess, were the first connection to the outdoors. And then where I really fell in love with the winter specific outdoors was when I got to university in Colorado. I went to Boulder, and it was the first time that I really got to view these activities as something that's not a super structured family trip, no ski school, no kind of being forced to go out because you had a lift ticket or something. Like I had a season pass that I bought in August, and then how it worked out back then with like the Epic Pass, if I went skiing, if I bought it in August, it would go up in price every week, and so you'd make the price back just from going skiing like 3 times. So then it's like, ooh, okay, you don't have any pressure. You also have ski mountains like 45 minutes away. So if you had a car or a friend with a car and no class, you could just go. And it was like so easy, and I could just enjoy having fun. It's this thing I had been doing. I'd been skiing since I was like 3 in Vermont, in Utah, and my aunt lived in Telluride, so I learned how to ski there. But it really just like opened up this whole new feeling for the mountain that wasn't super planned out, which I loved.
Colorado will do that to you, right? Just being surrounded by that culture and that environment. I mean, that was kind of my experience here in Utah. It's like you grow up in Utah and along the Wasatch, and you see the mountains every day. That's just kind of part of your day-to-day life is playing in the outdoors, right? So you don't really know any different, or at least I didn't. When did you realize that product is something that you were interested in? I'm sure like skiing, like really frequently you start to learn about product, and maybe you start looking at it differently, and you recognize, oh, people actually make this, right? Someone had to make this thing. Did you have a moment like that? And when did that happen for you?
I think I was definitely always interested in clothing to express like personal style, and I was very particular with like it was a very young age when I was like not letting my mom just shop for me without her and choose everything. So I always loved product for, personal style and expression and comfort. And I was always like comfort first. And then when I first got into like actually learning how to make it, I think it was in Boulder when I was doing this act. I was going to the mountains a lot. And I was mainly like, it's expensive to shop for the mountains. And so, I think that's a reason why it's like historically there's been like a hard entry point into just people going out to the mountains. And it was like when I was in college, it was like before athleisure or anything. So it's not like I was just gonna be like, oh, I'm not gonna go buy that ugly base layer. I'm gonna just wear my normal leggings I love, because like leggings weren't really even a thing. And so I was really just like wearing a bunch of my mom and grandma's hand-me-downs, because not even because I necessarily, it was my only choice. It was because I liked how they looked better than what was in the store. And I, in college, you're even more obsessed with your daily and weekly budget. I was like, why would I go spend $1,000 on this whole kit that I don't even like, I'm not gonna feel cool in on the mountain, like, so it came to that. And then I was just, getting way more familiar with the space, like obsessed with looking at and searching for things to buy or to test out, and just not finding a lot of stuff that I really was interested in. And then at the same time, like being with, like friends that were professional snowboarders and telemark skiers that get all this stuff for free, and it's the latest and greatest. And just like either just like becoming very curious about like, why are these brands like these huge brands, like why are they making these ugly things? And like it started out for girls was my view, just because I think I'm shopping for myself and I'm a girl, and it's very much like cheesy, like I'm like, okay, no matter what, I know I'm just gonna ask like, does this come in all black, because I don't want the pink paisley print jacket.
Yeah.
So it was, so that from that I studied journalism in school, and then from kind of that like sparked curiosity about just all this clothing on the mountain. And also I wasn't the only one. It's like you see the really cool like old guy with leathery skin, and he's wearing that jacket he's been wearing since like the 70s, and you're like, that's the coolest jacket I ever saw, so it's like, why can't we just update the materials or the construction or whatever? So from there I went and applied to Parsons after I graduated, and so I was at Parsons for 2 years for a fashion degree. And then I had never touched a sewing machine or anything, and it was kind of like a full 2 years of pattern making, draping, technical design, all that stuff. And because I think of my interest in learning about how to make mountain that functions and performs on the mountain, I was always just more interested in the technical design part, and fabric exploration. So that's where it started.
Were you able to customize your degree in a way where most fashion programs are focused on the fashion, not necessarily performance? I've talked to a few people who have gone into fashion programs, and they have to customize their degree in a way, or really fight for, hey, I really want to go the performance route. Maybe that's not as uncommon now, with the industry that we're a part of being as big as it is and growing. But did you have to fight for that at all?
So it was it was an associate's degree, which was typically a lot of the classmates were like, I was probably one of the youngest one coming straight out of college, because a lot of it was like people that were changing direction in their career, or like me, like just even switching a degree. So because of that, I think because the age group was it wasn't like an undergrad age, they just let you be more flexible. Like some people did it in 2 years, some people did it in more or a little less, because a lot of people were working during that time. Like I had constant internships, and I think that you have to take all the basic classes, but then when it gets into electives and stuff, that's where you could get creative. And also, since just the atmosphere was like people that were more had been in the workforce or anything, like the teachers were just they were more flexible. So like, let's say for a draping class, like I don't drape anything now, but to make it more interesting for me then, 100%, like instead of draping in a silk jersey, or a silk crepe, I would be like, can I use like a similar thickness 4-way stretch knit jersey instead? And my teacher was like, yeah, of course, like I can still see if you can do a butterfly twist or whatever it was. So I'd say yeah. And then the internships, I tried to get, I mean, there's not many outdoor brands or ski related brands based in New York, but so that's where I got into which brands work with these kind of materials. I work for a hard goods ski brand. I work for a ski, like an outerwear ski brand also, then a streetwear brand and an intimates brand. So you kind of just, the program at Parsons was like very helpful, but I think it just comes down to you and what you're making of your time and how creative you're going to get.
Totally. That's so valuable. You talked, well, kind of along that same line of thinking, right? Like you've done so many internships, I how many internships did you do for that? I don't know if it was while you were going to school or after. How many internships did you do during that experience?
During school, I did, I had like 5 internships during the 2 years.
Wow.
But I don't know, it might be an East Coast thing growing up. In high school, I even like got summer internships and stuff. So
that's great.
I mean, summer also internships have changed so much. I like graduated from high school in 2007, and a paid internship was unheard of then, or even for school credit or anything. So
right, absolutely. How did those kind of shape the direction that you wanted to take your career at that point while you were at Parsons? Did you know that you wanted to do skiwear or work in the outdoor industry, or was it through your internship experiences that you kind of guided the direction that you wanted to go?
From Boulder, that's why I applied to Parsons. I wanted to learn how to make ski clothing, and snowboard and all just winter outdoor gear. But through the internships, through Parsons, I was like, okay, what I'm most excited about function wise, if I was to work at a company, is tech design. Like doing technical sketches in Illustrator are like the least stressful thing to me. They're almost like a brain massage, compared to if I had to make a paper pattern based on something I draped.
Right.
And so I think that all the internships, I just wanted to, get experience at brands that I was a fan of. And when you're working for a brand, you get to see exactly what the brand's like. And sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes you don't leave being a fan of the brand. But I think all the internships made me like solidify that I wanted to be in the sports world of design.
Through these internship experiences, did you have like the seeds of Matek like there in the back of your mind ever since Boulder? Like when did that idea really it took shape later on, but were the seeds of that idea there like that early on for you?
Yeah, they were always like in the back of my head. I mean, I did like I kind of in Parsons, I would try and make things. Like I had a final project where the only requirement was to make a corset with boning and underwire. And I made a corset with boning and underwire, but built into a one-piece base layer. So I have a one-piece base layer now. So that was definitely the beginning of it. But I always, I always wanted to get as much experience as I could before I felt like confident that I could actually go and start Matek.
Right. I imagine doing these different internships, whether conscious or not, you start to pick up things about companies, right? It's like what you don't like, what you like, how you want to run your own business, what you definitely don't want to do in your own business. I'm sure those were really formative experiences when you did eventually launch your own line and started your own company. Were those helpful experiences for you?
Yeah, I would say even more than the internships, though, were the actual jobs I got after I graduated.
Right. Right. Well, maybe talk a little bit about that, because I know you had some time, you spent some time at Nike. When did you transition from internships to doing some freelance work to like that corporate, full-time experience?
Yeah, I did not intern after I graduated
Okay.
because they were all for school credit and I needed to start my career. And so I moved to California because I pretty much had interned for all of the brands I wanted to by the time I graduated. I mean, I'm sure right now there's way more sporty brands based in New York, but at the time there weren't. And so I moved to California because there was a lot more opportunity. And I started freelancing while still applying for jobs. And so I was freelancing for, a surf company, then for ASICs, and doing a little millinery because I had taken a millinery class. And in that was probably like over 6 months, all of those freelancer experiences, but still in the background applying for full-time jobs. And that's when I got an interview just from Nike and got the job and moved to Portland because that was kind of Nike was always like a dream to work at.
What was that experience like for you? Like the Nike experience? I'm sure that was an education in and of itself, in a lot of different ways. But what was your role there? What were some of those experiences that you had that really formed you moving forward?
Yeah, I was on Nike Lab, which at the time had stores associated with it, and it was we worked on all of the outside collaborations, and then a more exclusive high-end line of Nike. And I think the coolest, it was probably the best corporate experience I could get. It was like the campus was really cool. It's truly like a big sporty college campus. And you can obviously wear Nike to work, which is like leggings, t-shirt if you want, which was cool for me. And then it was I think what the most lucky, or because I was on that team, that was the only category at the time at Nike that worked on both men's and women's category and both streetwear, or not streetwear, performance and lifestyle. So it was kind of like getting the experience of if I had worked at all those different categories, which at a corporate company to move around to all those categories could have taken years.
Right. So I feel like you're kind of following this trajectory, like that you hear about as designers, right? It's like, okay, you go to fashion school, you do your internships, you do some freelance work, you get some of that first job, like, and then you get to Nike, right? Kind of this, what seems like for most, like the pinnacle experience, right? And then you decide to go the path of like starting your own thing, right? And starting your own line and building your own company. Like what went into that decision?
I knew I didn't want to live in Oregon forever because it is very normal to stay at Nike for like 10 plus years. But I didn't want to live in Oregon. My whole family's on the East Coast. I had a bunch of friends. My now husband was in California. So it was 2.5 years and I kind of felt like I was like ready to leave Nike. And then I just kind of I left in the summer and I took like a couple months and I was thinking, oh, should I start my own thing or should I go back out to the workforce and get another job? And I had just decided to go for it.
And I guess, did you have the designs in mind? Like how long was that idea incubating? We talked about, like, I guess the core idea was always there since Boulder, but when did it really start to take shape? The designs, like the initial product, like the brand, when some of that all come together?
Yeah. I mean, I'm completely, like bootstrapped. So self-funded and, organic and stuff. So I think I landed on, I knew that I had to start with a small collection and more something specific. I had always admired brands that kind of had like one item or one category of item that they were known for and loved for. And then from that trust of their customer loving that, they could then expand into other categories. So I chose base layers because those were the most boring part of the equation for me as a consumer. There was nothing like sexy about it. There was nothing that was like the super technical stuff I felt was very expensive. And then like there was just normal stuff that I'm like, why would I not just go to Uniqlo and get heat tech? Like, and so the price tag is still wild. And then the design was just not interesting. So I was like, at the very least, and also for winter sports, your first layer is like arguably the most important. If that gets cold or wet or heavy, it's like it doesn't even matter what your other layers are doing because you'll feel that first. So I started with the base layer. I wanted to I've always been inspired by like the archival heritage references, and so a long john was always a huge part of outdoor sports, and there weren't many out there. And also it's a huge, it is a huge task to address the entire body in one piece. So that's where the material sourcing and the construction and fit and how stretchy it could be and how it could fit on most bodies was important. So I started with the long john, and then from there, I think later, and because of my time at Nike, I also was like sports bras are kind of like denim. Like it doesn't matter how many there are out there. Each person's going to have their single favorite. It doesn't matter what brand it is. They're going to buy every color of it. So I was like, let me at least for, selfish reasons, make my own favorite sports bra and see if other people like it. So I started with the long john and the sports bra. And then after samples, and then when I was happy with the samples, I did a wear test of 30 women in all sizes. And then from there, I developed more. And then I decided to also create a 2-piece set. So when I launched, it was the long john, the full body long john, and the turtleneck bodysuit and the legging, and those all in 2 different colors, and the 2 sports bras.
That's and for reference, like, is that normal for like an initial launch, like a small operation like yourself, a collection? Like, is that a normal amount, like in terms of like comparatively? Like, is that a lot?
I mean, well, what's normal? Like
right?
I don't know what normal means.
It seems like a lot to have that many pieces to launch. That's really impressive. What you're able to do just yourself. Who was doing the prototyping, the sourcing? Like, you were establishing those relationships, you were working with factories. Like, how did some of that come together?
Yeah, I mean, I did all of the technical design and sourcing of the fabrics. And at first, before I went to a factory, I worked just with a pattern maker and a sample room.
Was this in LA at the time?
In LA, yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of that there. It seems like there's a lot of pattern makers and prototyping and manufacturing there.
Totally,
right?
Yeah. And the reason why I started with a pattern maker and a sample room was just because once you get into the into the factory. I think that they want to move you along in development faster, and I needed time to think, and I wanted and then also just pricing, like being self-funded, you always have budget on your mind.
Right.
So I wanted to be as efficient as possible. And I knew that, as a designer and technical designer, like my closeness to the product and ownership of the tech pack and all that was super important to me. So that's how I started. And then I moved to a factory that I'm still with in California, and made the wear test samples. And then from that feedback, I had applied new changes. And I think that even from the wear test feedback, there were some people that were like, because I obviously, wear testing also, that was a Nike thing that came from me. That was like a huge takeaway. Because it's not just about the fit and the size, it's also about the fabric. I'm like, I might be a crazy person that is obsessed with this fabric and nobody else is. Thank God that wasn't the case. But wear testing is like the most useful to me, and I still do it with every product I launch.
Well, that brings up an interesting point, right? It's like some of our designers, our students, like, and I'm sure a lot of designers out there struggle with designing things for other people. Sometimes you just get in your head, right? Like, I like this thing. I think this is cool. Like, this is what I want to create. And then I think wear testing brings you back home, right? And you quickly probably realize like, oh, well, I was doing that for me, but that doesn't work for this person. You get some really unique insights when you get other people involved in the process.
Yeah. And being, the day-to-day person in the office, and just even at that point, especially, that was before I didn't even have a brand name or a logo or anything. I hadn't got into like the website design or anything. It was just me and the product. And so that, being a one-person team, especially at that point when it was like a true one-person team, not working with any other outside people, I 100% use all of my whole network as tools, and as kind of like a focus group always, like I don't, I'm a little sister, so I don't really care. Being the annoying friend is built into who I am. So I'm like constantly polling everyone I know, from my mom and her friends and my grandma to my little cousin and his friends, and just my friends of friends, or my old Nike colleagues, or whoever. It's like, you really, I don't know, you can't be too sensitive to what anyone's going to say, because again, like what you said, it's like you don't want it to just keep it all to yourself and then launch it and be stuck in a place of, I literally just made something for only me.
Totally. Yeah. Well, and what was your workspace situation like? Was this out of your home? Did you have a separate studio where you were working?
It was in my home.
Okay. What?
I have a Juki sewing machine that I got in when I was at Parsons, because I was spending so much time at school till 2 a.m. and that I was, so I decided to invest in, for my mental health, a home Juki sewing machine to save kind of, my life and time.
If you're gonna sew until 2 a.m., you might as well do it at home and not at the school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a game changer. But so that Juki sewing machine has followed me to apartments, to now this office I'm in. And so it was always a home office and basically just my Juki and computer.
Well, I imagine like when you're starting something by yourself, and you're working in just your home or your own studio, it's probably easy to fall into this echo chamber, right? Like you're just you and your thoughts and your product. And in some cases that's probably a really good thing, like for focus. But like you said, it's easy to fall into like, oh, I'm making this thing because I think it's the right decision, but that might not be the right thing. So you talked a little bit about having a network and really relying on those people. I mean, especially during COVID, right? Where we're all like in our own spaces, right?
Yeah,
Harder to,
I did not launch the brand during COVID though.
right. Well, yes, but like now running the brand during COVID, right? And you're, I'm assuming, still creating products or, exploring new ideas. Like, how do you continue to stay connected with people, um, and break out of the echo chamber?
Um, the echo chamber.
Yeah,
I
echo
don't.
chamber of like kind of your own ideas, right? Like, you
Yeah.
know,
I mean, I'm constantly using everyone as a soundboard, and also I think a huge thing during COVID when I definitely have slowed down in new developments. I mean, it's not really part of the brand to overproduce or develop so much stuff. I like to keep it to my core collection. But definitely it's been a reminder to everything can slow down a little, and that's okay. You don't have to receive a really important email you have to respond to and respond to it immediately. You can sleep on it. The same thing with the design. It's like yeah, like, oh, am I choosing between, let's say I'm just choosing between a new balaclava color to make. um you can wait around and ask a couple people or look at it or maybe print it out and look at it on the wall for a little, in different ways like that. So definitely to slow down. I definitely um think that slowing down has helped the creative process.
right. Well, going back a little bit to kind of the origin of the product itself and the value of the product. I think this is something I've run into when I've talked to materials companies, particularly a company like Primaloft, right? That's making, the synthetic insulation that goes inside your jackets, right? It's like, how does a company like that build an affinity with a customer and build a trust when you don't actually ever like see or touch the product, right? Like you feel the effects of it, but for a lot of people, that Primaloft logo on the hang tag of your North Face jacket is just, you buy it for the North Face. You don't necessarily buy it for Primaloft, right? In a lot of cases, people in the outdoor industry are a little more plugged into what's in the products. But I imagine for you, that's an interesting. I don't know if you encountered that same thing. You talked about like base layers are just kind of that. They're just they're boring, right? It's an afterthought for a lot of people. And that was the opportunity it looks like you really seized upon. But I imagine there's something to that, similar to a Primaloft, right? It's like the base layer is covered up, right? It's the closest thing to your body, but you also don't see it when you have everything else on, and no one else sees what you're wearing on the mountain. um, and I think you've done an incredible job with your social, like really putting that base layer to the forefront, because you have to, right? Like you have to show it, and it's really attention grabbing and it really jumps out. Were there some initial challenges that you faced or still face with that kind of that same idea of like, my product is like typically covered up, but it's also so close to the body, which means that it should be one of the most important things that you really think about when you purchase this product, is what is going to be closest to my skin. Any thoughts there? I know there was a lot there, but
I think the takeaway from all of that, or what I think I saw as most important to express, other than there's obviously all the specs of the materials and the fit and why this is important, even though you're not seeing it. Or it's, to me, at first I used to like call them technical performance intimates, because in the same way that your favorite underwear isn't seen, it makes you feel different. If
right.
you have, if it's laundry day and you don't have your favorite boxers or underwear, bra, like it does make you feel different, even though people can't see it. And so there's that, but then there's also the part of, for me, the word like eco-friendliness. It's not eco-friendly to create new things and put them out there. But to create something that typically is, used just for a specific activity, people think base layer and they go straight to winter vacation. But I'm like, okay, the design is there, the technical function is there, so it is for that moment, but it's more sustainable and eco-friendly to not let it sit in that specific, moment and just have it last through the whole year, because this product can function for you for the whole year and for every activity. And so to keep, the core collection is like very evergreen and kind of keeps a circular closet, which I think is really just the best idea out there in terms of, sustainable fashion. Because if you keep your closets circular, then you're using all you're loving everything you have. It's good quality and it lasts. And just in the same way that this whole idea started because I was wearing my mom's outerwear, it's like, yeah, typically base layers you would not share, but they'll last that long. And if you're going to buy more, it's not because you threw out the other one, it wasn't working anymore. It's because you want another color and you appreciate what this quality is. So I think also to push the idea that this is stuff for everyday life. This is just well designed in both aesthetic and quality, that it can fit into your normal life and these specific active moments. But yeah, I don't know, did that answer your question?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think about myself, like I've got that winter box, right? It's like, and I feel like every outdoor person, like they have that box where it's like, oh, okay, snow's falling. I got to go and pull out all my winter stuff, my winter gear. And it's like, I love that imagery, right? Of the circular closet and having something that isn't put into that box of like, that we put it in, that, oh, this is just for when I go skiing.
Yeah, it's like the same thing of how we've come so far with, like unisex and stuff like that. It's like, you don't need to just shop in the specific section for the specific thing. It's like we can be more creative in our habits like that.
Totally. Well, and comfort being like a huge factor, right? So I love what you said about like anything that is close to your body, underwear, like something that other people typically don't see, right? Like, but it's closest to you and it affects how you feel, right? Like that's a huge responsibility to create something that just makes people feel comfortable. And seems like that's where you can really build a connection with people, which it looks like you have, right? Like you build this connection with people because you're creating something that really alleviates a pain point for them, which I think is really special. I wanted to touch on the sports bra, and I don't know, have you worked with Legine Lawson up in
Yes.
Portland? Okay.
So
I couldn't remember if we had talked about her.
Yeah, that's how I found out about you guys.
Okay.
She's so cool. So she I connected with her. She's like a member, a mentor. And she is just so epic. I was connected through her one of the other, there was a tripod of women who created the first ever sports bra. So I was connected through a family friend with one of the other women, who then connected me with Legine, who is just she's so young at heart. Like it's so crazy. She's so with it. She knows what's going on. Like she's so active, and she was super inspiring to me. And I was lucky enough to as a favor to me, we fully put my sports bras through all the testing that she puts all of the whole industry of sports bra through. And then when I was doing a wear test, she got to wear test and everything. So it was really cool for me.
She's incredible. Yeah, she's on our advisory board for our program because she went to Utah State and got her master's here. So she's been fantastic. We love Legine. Awesome. But I love everything she's talked about as a sports bra is equipment, right? Yeah. And that idea. And I think we're seeing companies who are moving more that direction, or at least they talk that way. Remember Black Diamond, would talk a lot about, well, our clothing, we're Black Diamond Equipment. That's the name of the company, but we also make clothing. And they've really talked about, well, no, clothing is a part of the kit, right? It's equipment. So I think when you think about it that way, I don't know, you just think about clothing in a different way when you think about it in those terms. And I don't know if you would go that far to say like your base layer is equipment. But I
mean,
don't
it's
know where
all
I'm going with
very,
that,
yeah,
but
like it's what makes something, it's like gear
Mhm.
or equipment. Like these are all functioning technical garments.
Right.
So I would say, I mean, yeah, I guess technically if it's a product that's performing for you, it's technically equipment.
Right. Totally. Well, I love that idea with Lejean and the sports bra. It's like, it is a piece of equipment that helps you perform.
I mean, a sports bra is definitely equipment.
Totally.
I'm like, you know, that's just, it's a crazy part of, I just say crazy part of the body to address, just because on paper 10 women can have the same exact measurements. In
Right.
person that area looks totally different. So how is this same garment going to address all of their needs? It's wild.
Well, with
So
that
it
said,
is a really tough space.
right. With that said, for you as a small company, how do you account for that variability? I mean, you have massive companies who don't account for that for one reason or another, right? Like, how do you try to ensure that your product works for the most amount of people as possible? That's got to be huge, a
That
huge
I would
challenge.
say for that's, I mean, the wear testing and the feedback.
Yeah.
But again, you're not going to be able to help everyone. That's why I said I kind of like come up with the analogy that sports bra is like denim, where you're just going to find the one for you, you know? So like it's okay to have competition in the market there, because I don't think that one perfect sports bra exists for everyone.
Right.
You know, not even just based on what activity you're doing in it, but just based on that it's a part of the body that can fluctuate so greatly between individuals.
Totally. Well, what was the reception like? And well, I guess what was the launch like, first of all? Like, when you're launching a new collection, how do you get it out to people? Like, you've got your own network that you've built over time, but what did that initial launch look like? You put it on a website, you have a lookbook, you send it out to people. Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, so I think that the best investment I did for launch was hire work with a publicist. I mean, I don't, that kind of word just brings me to like Hollywood and stuff, but like for a communications professional who's my very good friend, who happens to be an amazing publicist, and getting the word out there to press and stuff. I mean, especially when, you know, I didn't have a I don't have a budget for paid marketing and paid social and stuff like that. So like, you know, you can basically assume that any of these brands that you're, you know, even if it's a small brand, if you're getting their retargeted ads every week or every day, like they have a hefty budget to get it to you.
Right.
So I was really just operating on organic. And so the press was huge because that directs people to your website. Also wholesale account. I started out, when I launched, I was also on Moda Operandi, a big website that has a huge marketing budget of their own. So that in itself is a tool. It's just like the most, that's like those are all the ways digitally, I guess, to get the word out. I kind of, you know, for better or worse, I just do organic marketing, which I think it's kind of like old school in the way that it really brings a quality and a power to word of mouth, which I think for me, like I have a blog called Tips Up, and it's, you know, like on the chairlift when they say put your ski tips up. And so it it's just a very short casual blog, and it's just the people's, this whoever the guest is, it's their recommendations on what they usually have in their pocket, you know, on a hike or on a chairlift or whatever, because that's like kind of, I don't know, so true to the industry, is just like recommendations on the trail or on the chairlift of like, oh my God, who makes your backpack? I love that backpack. And that's how you find out about a new brand, you know, outside from our digital space we're all used to living in right now.
Well, the consumer is so savvy, right? Or much more savvy. It's smarter, like like we all just like can see through things. And I think a lot of us are seeing like Instagram is becoming more and more of a ad tool, right? It's just a vehicle to serve ads to people,
Mhm.
in some ways. And I think people see through that with brands, right? No doubt like paid marketing really works for brands and generates a lot.
Yeah.
But I think people also see through and like they want authenticity, right? And so they recognize like an authentic brand like a Matek, right? That's doing things organically. And um, I don't know if you hear that from people, but from my perspective, I think there's a lot of value in that, right? And I don't know if that pendulum is going to swing back at some point where people really reject like, a lot of the paid ads that they're being served up, and they begin to seek out more authentic brands that are building these relationships. But I think there's huge value in that for sure.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, no matter what, whether it's, you know, digital marketing or organic marketing, repetition is like just what you have to do. So,
Yeah,
even if you're like, oh no, I hate an ad, like the 10th time you get it, you might click it. And
that's
that's, I
true.
guess, the whole concept. But it's the same way for me. It's like, um, the I might be saying about, oh, this, all our dictics are made from dead stock fabric. And then maybe on the 10th time of mentioning it, someone will say, oh, what's dead stock fabric? Like they'll
Totally.
actually get interested. So
Totally. No,
yeah.
absolutely. Well, I wanted to talk a little like some of the larger issues in the industry too. And you touched on some of this earlier, right? Like this idea of accessibility, creating product that's more accessible for people. And I mean, ski has largely been seen like for, I mean, decades as like this very exclusive, like luxury activity. Um, and I think even, I don't know if it's even more today, but it's, it's a very exclusive activity for a lot of people. There's a lot of barriers to entry. There's a lot of restrict cost, prohibited. Um, you talked about that as being like a motivator for you, like creating product that, yeah, it'll work on the mountain, but it's accessible for anyone, in like a cold environment, people who want to be comfortable and stay warm. Like, how much does that drive what you're trying to create or continuing to create?
Yeah, I think that I mean, that's always something in the design process of, you know, even if the function and is specific for this product, like, does it have a multi-use?
Hmm.
Um, does it have, you know, not super specific moment that it's, like, I don't know, just like my design philosophy is always like, don't be stuck into like a single category. Maybe that's where it starts, but like to be creative in expressing, um to the consumer of, this doesn't have to be just for backcountry skiing. This could be for if you're cold and going out to dinner too, or whatever it is, kind of like express the function through these designs, because it's not the case for all product. A lot of product, like, unless your style is super, gorpcore or techie, you might not want to wear your, yeah, your base layer out to dinner. Like, that's totally normal. um but that's why I think it's always good, because the outdoors had, I mean, back in the day, like a lot of these references that are like uber chic and stuff like that, they didn't have like sports clothing, so they were just saying, oh, what in my closet, oh, that's made of wool, I can wear that as a base layer. And that's why they look so chic, because it was cross functioning.
Right. Totally. Do you ever feel like the push and pull of, I mean, you are in the fashion space, but you're also doing performance. Like, are you also seeing like a larger, I mean, we see like the North Face and Gucci and their collaboration, right? It's like fashion and outdoor like colliding more than ever, it seems like. Um, how do you feel about that? You're kind of a part of that in a way.
It's cool. I mean, I think the more people that feel welcome outside through, if it's through fashion or whatever it is, like, that's great.
Totally. I've heard
Yeah, a
a
lot
lot
of
of,
people get really upset, and I don't.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that trolls will be trolls, honestly.
Right. I think it's a lot of the outdoor people, a lot of the complaints that I heard about the North Face Gucci was a lot of outdoor people, people in the outdoor community saying, oh, that's that, I don't know what the complaints were. There were a variety of complaints about it, but people felt betrayed, right? It's like, this is a betrayal of what the North Face is. And
Like
I
the
like
North,
to,
all the like, there's historically so many collaborations
Mhm,
between fashion and outdoor. If
totally.
it's not for you, don't buy it. But like, I don't know. I just don't think that negativity, if someone's making a product that is like has a crazy carbon footprint or really bad for the world, like that's one thing. But if it's just like getting people outside through that's encouraging people outside. And if
Totally.
you're not the person if you're not gonna buy, like North Face has Purple Label, which is probably
Mhm.
just as expensive as Gucci,
Yeah. Yep.
so I don't know. To me, I was like, oh, that's cool. I wasn't like, oh my God, these people stepping in my space. Like it
Totally.
almost encourages. I was like, great, I would love, that backpack. But
Yeah, that was my thought, is just I'm more in line with you, this idea of like, oh well, if this helps people who traditionally wouldn't participate in outdoor activities go and do that, and it exposes new audience to the outdoor
totally, it's
industry,
like
then great.
yeah, like those people that are, super saying this is so bad for the outdoors in general, or the outdoor, apparel world. It's like, what do they think about Montclair? That's a completely
Yeah,
outdoor company,
totally.
but they wouldn't buy it, or they're not their customers. So I don't know. I think the world is filled with a lot of people that, either there was the whole cancel culture and negativity and, who knows, but I don't think any of that makes anyone feel more welcome in a place they're trying to get out to, especially when, like, for me, in the outdoors, even if it's your backyard
Mhm.
or a public park, that's like the height of luxury in the pandemic. If you
Mhm.
can get your feet on grass, like you're doing it, like,
Right.
so to discourage anyone, it's just silly.
Yeah, I not to bring this back to COVID, right? But it seems like everything does in some form or another. But it seems like it is like the reset, right? This opportunity for the outdoor industry to look at itself and say, for a lot of people, the outdoors is like the trail starts, outside their front door, right? And that should be encouraged, and that's a good thing, right? So I'm definitely more of that opinion, right? And I love to see the direction that we're headed, right? Just outdoor doesn't have to be this, certain activities. It can be however people enjoy activity or getting outside. So I love the direction that we're going. Um, we should talk about new products and products that you've released recently. You're even, showing one off for us today. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
do you mind touching on a few of the newer releases and what's coming?
Yeah, so I mean, again, I because of pandemic slash just the brand ethos of keeping a circular closet and not overproducing. And really, I'm so proud of these core styles and I stand by them. So I'll be going next season. I'm just making new colors in my Mop Mop balaclava, which was the new launch of this season. The base layers are staying core. I would love to, make a two-piece set for men and for kids too. But for now, I'm just gonna, stick to my core and probably reproduce those with a couple little tweaks from feedback. But we have new colors of the balaclava coming, possibly a sock if I get it to a place I like it that matches the balaclava. Not a ski sock. It's just like a gripper kind of slipper sock. For that cozy après or whatever moment you want. And then I always have new dictics. The dictics are um, all made from dead stock fabric, which I'm sure your students are very familiar with.
Yep.
Um, but the nature of dead stock is that when you like find a fabric, it's very unlikely that you'll be able to find it again. So, which makes them each dictate kind of like an exclusive colorway in its own. So those are always kind of newness when I find a new fabric.
Well, and I think that's it's an interesting model, because more and more I'm seeing people are both attracted to brand and want to be connected to, that tribe, that community. But people are also striving for uniqueness, right? And so like the dead stock idea is like, you can be affiliated, connected to Matek, but you also have this, what feels like a unique piece, which I think is special. And we're seeing more and more of that. I feel like people want that uniqueness, but they also want to be connected to something.
Yeah. And I always, I don't try and make anything that I'm already have a favorite of at the bare minimum. So I hope all the pieces are unique to Matek.
What is it's funny, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, but the balaclava moment, I feel like the last few months, like I just saw, there were articles written about balaclavas. There's our friend Jameis Taylor, who runs Greater Goods. I don't know if you're familiar with Jameis and his work, but they did a knit balaclava. It just seemed like the balaclava was having a moment there for a little while, and still is.
Yeah, I love a balaclava. I think that maybe it was with like double masking or just like masking in general, it became way more mainstream, which is cool, but it's kind of always been mainstream to me. Like in streetwear, you see Supreme and Stone Island always making a balaclava.
Right.
Ours has a brim, so it like if it's under a helmet and keeps out the sun, and I've tested it for on mountain and off, and I love it.
That's great. Well, a couple other thoughts before we wrap up. But again, wanted to thank you for providing opportunity for our students. I know we've had a couple students
who providing your students.
They're great, and I know they'd love the opportunity. Yeah, I know, and we touched on this earlier, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about inspiration. Like, where do you draw your design inspiration? And I know you've really liked the archive. And we're hoping to do more on the ski side at some point in our collection. But where do you draw your design inspiration? Where do you find that?
Yeah, I aesthetically, always usually from it honestly, it usually doesn't start with the aesthetic and that kind of. I'm usually inspired by problem solving. I think that's because of my technical design and product development background. So either a problem in a product to solve or an activity that I want a product for to solve. So it starts at that, like that kind of brainstorming for problem solving for whatever it is at hand. And then I'm always constantly obsessed with, like the vintage ads and vintage imagery, and those do inspire the design aesthetically, but not as much as they inspire just how I'm later going to showcase the design in, let's say, a photo shoot or something. So I'd say that that's where they mainly. Also, like I'm like hugely like obsessed with the copy and stuff, like in the outdoor world and ski, snowboard specific, but just in general, like the ads used to be so sassy, and I love that. And I think that has played into a huge inspiration in just the brand in general and the copy and etc. But which yeah, like it's cool to see other people now. I think because of the I'm sure a lot of people are appreciating your archive and stuff, but it is maybe due to the fact that we're stuck on the computer and looking at these things, and then also having a new appreciation for the outdoors in general because of the pandemic. But yeah, I've always wanted to kind of be inspired by the past, but updates with the future in terms of function and fit and performance of and materials and etc. So all those things kind of work into all of it.
Well, I know for us, like with the archive, like you said, I know with a lot of people not being able to travel, or larger companies taking those design trips out to to the major cities or out to different destinations, it's like you have to find inspiration in other places. And I think that definitely helped drive people to our collection and looking to the past, and reflecting on that. But well, this has been great. It's great to talk to you more, learn more about your story and what you're working on. And again, we just appreciate your support of the program, the collection, our students. Anything you need, let us know, and we're happy to help any way we can. But how do people stay in touch with you? I know Instagram is a great way to keep up with all your work, but how do you want people to reach out to you?
Check us out on Instagram at matek.clothing, or email at hi@matek.clothing.
Perfect. Well, Abigail, thanks so much. It's great to connect with you. Great to talk with you.
You too. Have a great day, Chase.
Thanks.